Part 71. Dressed as a farm boy, he cheated on his way out of the desert. Author, Delayed Flowering. Chapter 701. Chapter 701. Just one good deed a day. Didn't I say that these gentlemen always scolded the Northern Expeditionary Army for treating them harshly when they returned home? Why did they come to support the Lee family? Perhaps they are interested in the power of the Lee family and want to take the opportunity to curry favor with them. Even so, we can't have so many people coming. Similarly, Chen Chuan, who was tied next to the pit, became more and more desperate. He just wanted to vent his anger, want to make the Lee family feel bad, and soothe his hatred of losing his son and his mother. As for whether the Lee family is at fault or not, it doesn't matter at all. Even if he is not comfortable himself, he cannot see others feeling comfortable either. Who would have thought that the Lee family, which he subconsciously thought was easy to handle, would actually be such a hard piece of iron? He wanted to beg for mercy, but couldn't. He could only look desperately at the official road, hoping that someone would come to rescue the Chen family. Finally, he expected another group of people to arrive. When he got closer, he saw Li Lao, Mr. Wen, Guo Wenhao in sackcloth, and of course the Guo family slaves, each holding a stick and a knife. Li Lao saw that many people in the second village were injured, and Dr. Zhang was treating them. But my mother, brother, and nieces were all safe and sound, so I breathed a long sigh of relief. Looking at Mr. Lu and the new recruits 3 more times, he looked even better. The Guo family was in mourning, and they had just sent the coffin to the cemetery for burial. As soon as they picked up the grave bag, they heard that something had happened at home. He rushed home frantically. Along the way, he thought too much in his mind, but luckily they were not reality. He quickly saluted Mr. Lu and others, and then asked his brother. "Fourth, what's going on?" Li Laozi was also unambiguous about the cause and effect. He simply said a few words, and Li Lao and everyone understood it clearly. Li Lao glanced at Chen Chuan, who was described as embarrassed, and the frightened Chen family, and said, "Ru Jintan is the fiefdom of the princess. According to Tianwu law, although the fiefdom belongs to Tianwu, the princess is not. The feudal lord had the right to govern. That is to say, the princess has the right to deal with everything that happens on the fief. Now the Chen family is carrying a coffin to force each other, allowing slaves to commit murder, insulting the Li family, and offending the princess. It is really a heinous crime." However, the principal of the county sympathized with the Chen family's pain in losing their son, and was willing to grant the Chen family's wish and bury Chen He's coffin at Sujintan. The entire Chen family was buried with him, and the whole family went to Huangquan Road together. This was also a good thing. Although I feel sorry for wasting a good piece of land, the princess is kind-hearted, so let's do it. Chen Chuan listened from beginning to end, his eyes were as wide as a cow's. He couldn't believe it at all. Li Lao was so eloquent that he wanted to bury hundreds of Chen family members alive. It was as if the Chen family begged and the princess reluctantly agreed. Then what have they become? Are they driving towards death? No, it's not. He finally couldn't bear it any longer and was about to shout at the top of his lungs. Uncle Zhao pulled a bunch of weeds, stuffed it into his mouth, and cursed in a low voice, "You dare to do something you dare not do. Where is your ability and majesty just now? Now you know that you are afraid of regretting it. It's too late. Don't you feel sorry for your son? What's wrong with your son going to see the Lord of Hell? It's best to reincarnate together. You can pamper him for 2 lifetimes and be a good father." Chen Chuan shook his head desperately and whined, but unfortunately no one could hear him. At this time, a large pit 2 feet long, 1 foot wide, and 6 feet deep was finally dug. Ji Yan specially went to the pit to take a look, and said to the village chief, "This pit is too small, and it will wrong people like the Chen family. But it's cold in winter, so we can do so much for them, and we have done our best." After saying that, she turned to look at everyone in the Chen family, smiling innocently and happily, but her words were frightening. Bury them in, place them vertically, and squeeze them in a little bit is enough. The village chief nodded and immediately called the villagers for help. The closest Chen family servant was thrown into the pit first, followed by the second, third. Everyone in the Chen family was completely frightened and started crying and howling loudly. Help, help. I don't dare to do it anymore. Oh, I still have a blind old woman to support, please spare my life. Woo, help, I don't want to be buried alive. It's our master who ordered us to come and cause trouble. I didn't want to. Spare your life, spare your life. It's a pity that no matter how much they shouted, they were all thrown into the pit one by one like dumplings. Li Laozi tucked up the front of his robe, jumped into the pit, and stood up the Chen family slaves and veterans like beanbags against the wall of the pit. In just a moment, the pit was half filled. The Chen family's cries were so loud that the crowd watching the excitement in the distance could hear it clearly, and they were also frightened to the point of weakening their legs. You don't really want to be buried alive, do you? Looking at this posture, it doesn't seem like it's trying to scare people. This is too cruel. I'm scared to death. I'm going to have nightmares tonight. They were just listening to the noise, that's all. Every member of the Chen family in the pit had peed themselves all over their pants and cried until they fainted. But neither the villagers nor Li Laozi stopped. Li Lao stood by the pit with his back straight and his face neither happy nor sad. Ji Yan sat on the chair, poured hot tea for Mr. Lu with a smile, and chatted casually. Grandpa Lu, brothers Hyman and brother Xiaojia are going on winter vacation, right? I have planted a lot of southern fruits in the greenhouse. Let them come and play when the time comes, and I will treat them to some fruits. Okay, Mr. Lu coughed dryly and replied, the academy will definitely have a holiday before the new year, and we will let them come and play then. After saying that, he thought for a while and said, Princess, so many people have been buried, should you think about it again? Ji Yan still smiled and said, Grandpa Lu, they came here carrying the coffin so hard just to be buried in Broken Gold Beach. I am just helping them fulfill their wishes and doing one good deed every day. Mr. Lu was dazzled by the fat girl's smiling face, but his heart shrank. He had guessed who among the 4 brothers and the 7 boys of the Li family would hold up the throne of the Li family in the future and be the ruthless and smart alpha wolf. It might be Boss Li, it might be Li Jiaran, or it might even be Brother Li. But he never thought that the alpha wolf would be this fat girl who was greedy for food and fun, and was loved by 3,000 people. While talking and laughing, 100 lives were thrown into the pit. There was no fear or pity in her eyes, only determination. I'm afraid most men can't do this, at least not him. In such a short time, the pit was already crowded with people, densely packed with black heads, and accompanied by a coffin amid the sounds of crying. No one doubted that the Li family was trying to scare people. Mr. Chen, who was unconscious, finally woke up and was thrown into the pit. When he could see what was going on, he passed out again. Mr. Chen has been stretching his neck and looking into the distance, not knowing who is waiting to save him. As he was kicked into the pit, he couldn't wait any longer and shouted loudly. Help, I'm going to be buried alive. What are you waiting for? Come and save me. If I don't come out, I'm going to tell the truth. Chen He was not killed by the Li family. Chen He liked to smoke. Unfortunately, no one responded to him at all, which made him crazy. End of this chapter. Dressed as a farm boy, he cheated on his way out of the desert. Author, Delayed Flowering. Chapter 702. Chapter 702, Establish your authority to the end. Chen Chuan's eyes were so wide open that they were bloody, tears were flowing from the corners of his eyes and mixed with blood, and his intestines were turning blue with regret. He didn't know where the strength came from. He spat out the grass from his mouth and shouted in a hoarse voice, I was wrong. I don't dare to do it anymore. My son's death has nothing to do with the Li family. It's because I was blind. Ji Yin glanced at him coldly. Mr. Chen, if you make a mistake, you will be punished. All children know this. If everything can be smoothed out by shouting a few words of regret, then why do we need laws? Li Laoer stretched out his hand and pulled Li Laozi up. Li Laozi picked up Chen Chuan and threw him directly onto the coffin. The village chief personally took the shovel and stepped forward. Li Laoer and Li Laozi each took one, shoveled up the soil around the pit and spread it down. In an instant, the cries and howls of everyone in the Chen family became even louder. Chen Chuan roared angrily, I am an official of the imperial court. You can't kill me casually. You are breaking the law. Pull me up quickly. I am the commander of the 5th rank. Li Laoer and Li Laosi are under constant attack. Li Laoer even spoke in a homely manner, explaining things to Chen Chuan. Master Chen, what you said is wrong. When you led more than 100 people and rushed to Broken Gold Beach carrying the coffin, why didn't you think that our family also has a title? My niece is the princess, I am the uncle of Zhongshan, my mother is the first-grade lady, and my brother is the general. Which official position is not greater than yours, which one is not more noble than yours, but why did you rush in carrying the coffin? We've been making trouble for a long time, the truth is yours. When you bully others, you don't care about anything. When it's your turn to bear the consequences, you will remember that you are an official of the imperial court. What's wrong with the court officials? Aren't they just one mouth and two nostrils? At worst, after sending your whole family on their way, our family will return all the titles to the court. It's useless to be left or right. People who want to bully our Li family don't care about these titles, do they? Chen Chuan was speechless due to the rebuke, and a handful of dirt happened to be thrown into his face, choking him and causing him to cough desperately. His defenses were completely broken and he burst into tears. Spare your life, Weavuo, please forgive me. I don't dare to do it anymore. It's all my blindness, it's all my lard that has deceived my heart. Weavuo, please forgive me, I don't want to die. With the master taking the lead, everyone in the Chen family cried and howled even more. It's a pity that handfuls of sand and soil were still sprinkled into the pit. The sand fell, gradually filling the gaps between everyone, covering their legs, waists, and chests. In the Zindu Imperial Palace, there was no need to go to court today. The emperor got up early to review the memorial and then went to the imperial garden for a walk. Now that the plum blossoms are in bloom, it is a good time to invite a gentle and talented concubine to enjoy the flowers and compose poems. But soon after being happy, Manager Yi hurried over. The concubine was very eye-catching, so she left on the pretext of folding flowers and putting them in a vase. Manager Yi then said, Your Majesty, something small has happened. Chen Chuan's mother passed away last night. Chen Chuan and his two brothers Su Shi were so angry that they carried Chen He's coffin and brought more than 100 veterans and slaves into Broken Gold Beach to bury Chen He in front of the Li family. Forward. What? The emperor frowned and cursed angrily, he is so brave. I have ordered the Ministry of War to investigate. Does he not believe in the Ministry of War, or does he not believe in me? Sujintan is the fiefdom of Princess Kangal. He carries the coffin and persecutes her. Does this mean he doesn't take the princess and the Li family seriously? He has lost a son, is he still crazy? Manager Yi also sighed and continued, what the emperor said is true, and the old slave can't understand it. I heard that the hundreds of people in the Chen family were armed with sticks and sabers, and they injured many villagers in Sujintan. Fortunately General Li is at home, otherwise Broken Gold Beach would have been in ruins. If Chen Chuan were to bury his son's coffin in front of the Li family would not be able to walk around Zindu anymore. Now Chen Chuan and the Chen family were arrested by General Li and the villagers. The princess was so angry that she dug a hole to bury Chen Chuan and the Chen family. Your Majesty, look at this. The emperor had a headache after hearing this. He was angry at Chen Chuan's recklessness no matter how much he thought about it. Although the real cause of Chen He's death was not told to him, it is currently under investigation. He ignored the trouble and showed lawlessness and contempt for the imperial power. This fool deserves to be buried, the emperor cursed, but still said, but if he is really buried alive, my desk will be filled with the censor's memorials, and Fu Niuer's title and fiefdom will not be preserved. He thought for a while and then said, according to my decree, Chen Chuan carried a coffin and broke into Princess Kangle's fiefdom. He was lawless and his crime was unforgivable. For the loss of his son and his mother, the death penalty can be avoided, but the living crime cannot be avoided. Anyone from the Chen family who breaks into Sujintan today will be sentenced to hard labor in Sujintan for half a year. Any damage to Sujintan will be doubled by the Chen family. Manager Yi quickly agreed and whispered, Your Majesty is wise. In half a year, the matter of Yaokai will be revealed. By then, the cause of Chen He's death can also be told to the Chen family. Today's misunderstanding will be completely resolved. The emperor sighed and said, It's hard to say that the Li family will be wronged again, but the overall situation is more important. Let them vent their anger for the time being. When the truth comes out in the future, the Chen family will naturally have to apologize. Also, please give the princess some advice in private. A girl carrying the reputation of burying hundreds of people alive is doing a lot of harm but no good. Mr. Yi quickly drafted the imperial edict, then led his people out of the palace quickly and rushed to Broken Gold Beach. Outside the new village, pits are still being filled. Li Laoer and Li Laosi were not merciful at all. After a while, the sand was buried up to everyone's neck. The entire pit was full of human heads, with their mouths open and howling. The miserable scene of the 18 levels of is nothing more than this. The idle people in the distance have quietly gathered around and peeked secretly. Some people couldn't bear it better. After just one glance, they ran to the side and vomited. The Li family is serious about it, not just pretending. At this moment, everyone was shocked by the Li family's cruelty. Mr. Lu turned his head away. Mr. Wen and the soldiers also had bad expressions, but no one spoke to persuade him. They have always supported the Li family. No matter what happens to the Li family, they must support it to the end. And the Li family also wants to establish their authority to the end. Everyone in the Chen family is in despair. They can't even speak. They can only shout like wild beasts. If they could go back in time, even if they cut off their own legs, they would never break into Broken Gold Beach again. Ji Yan sat upright, looking at the pit, trying his best to endure the discomfort in his heart. She has never killed anyone in her 2 lives. Now that she gave the order and was about to kill more than 100 people, how could she really be as calm as she appeared? But in the face of wild beasts, the best way to protect yourself and your family is to kill the wild beast completely, or, be completely frightened and never dare to approach it again. Old Mrs. Li regarded her granddaughter as an eyeball and raised her at the top of her heart. She knew her granddaughter's temper very well. At this moment, using the cover of her sleeves, she quietly shook her granddaughter's hand, trying to give her some comfort. Sure enough, my granddaughter's palms were already sweating. The sword will save you, the sword will save you. At this moment, Manager Yi finally arrived with his people. Everyone looked over subconsciously. Mr. Yi jumped off his horse and almost fell down. His old arms and legs rarely struggled like this. He held onto the reins and said breathlessly, Princess, calm down, the emperor knows that the Chen family is so rude and has already issued a decree to punish them. Hearing this, everyone stood up and fell to their knees. End of this chapter. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. Dressed as a farm boy, he cheated on his way out of the desert. Author, Delayed Flowering. Chapter 703. Chapter 703, Two husband and wife, one child is unreasonable. General Manager Yi quickly unfolded the imperial edict and read it out. The Chen family heard that they were sentenced to hard labor in Sujintan for half a year and the compensation was doubled. They all cried with joy. Woohoo, we're saved. Long live the emperor, long live the emperor. They are probably the first people in the history of Tianwu who enjoy doing hard labor so much. Some people were so excited and had been buried for so long that they fainted from exhaustion. Some people were struggling to climb out, but their hands and feet were tied. But more people were frightened and in a daze, not knowing that they had escaped the fate of being buried alive. Li Lao received the imperial edict and started chatting with General Manager Yi. Even Mr. Lu and Mr. Wen also came forward to salute. Mr. Yi looked at them a little strangely, so Mr. Wen called Guo Wenhao to him and said a few words. Manager Yi couldn't help but nod. He has also heard about the grievances between the Li family and the Guo family. Now there is only such a young man left in the Guo family. The Li family has put aside all the past grudges and now even helps arrange the funeral affairs of the deceased elders of the Guo family. It can be said that he is broad-minded and full of humaneness. Actually, whenever he reported matters concerning the Li family to the emperor, he would be more or less partial to the Li family. For example, when one thing was said twice today, the emperor was even more angry with the Chen family for being rude, but did not blame the Li family for planning to bury hundreds of people alive. Although I only used a little art of speaking, the result was much worse. In the final analysis, what he values or likes is the human touch of the Li family, which is why he is willing to help them. At this moment, Ji Yan'er pursed her lips, looking a bit like a little girl having a tantrum. She pulled on Manager Yi's sleeve and said aggrievedly, Manager Yi, Uncle Huang is partial, these people came here carrying the coffin and cursed my grandma. I'll teach them a lesson, Uncle Huang, why don't you allow it? Mr. Yi was amused and quickly coaxed, Princess, the emperor is worried about the princess. He is afraid that the princess will be angry, so he specially asked the old slave to bring a message to the princess. The emperor said that although these people deserved their crime, in the end it was 110 lives. The princess was a girl, and it would be difficult to marry after carrying a bad reputation. So, the emperor asked the Chen family to stay in Sujintan and work like cattle and horses to vent their anger on the princess. When the investigation becomes clear in the future, the Chen family will definitely have to apologize to the princess. Ji Yan reluctantly responded, okay, I don't believe in the Chen family, but I have to believe in Uncle Huang. She rolled her eyes and said, Manager Yi, the Chen family injured many people in our family. The Chen family must pay for the injuries and medicine. Can I come to ask for it? Manager Yi laughed when he heard this, and guessed that the little girl was unwilling to give in and wanted to go to the Chen family to cause trouble. These are all innocuous and small questions, so he responded quickly, back to the princess, the emperor has said that the Chen family will pay double compensation for all losses caused by broken gold beach. As for how to ask for it, of course it depends on the princess's wishes. Ji Yan was finally satisfied, and after thinking about it, she called Shui Ling, Manager Yi is the most considerate in serving Uncle Huang. No one knows what Uncle Huang likes better than Manager Yi. You can lead Mr. Yi to my greenhouse and have a look if there are fruits and vegetables that the emperor likes, let Mr. Yi pick more and bring them back to the palace. Oh, I really need to thank you, Princess. Your Majesty has had a bad appetite these days. Princess has the most fresh food here, so I have to be shameless and take more today. Manager Yi smiled and cupped his hands in thanks, and then following Shui Ling, he entered the village. Seeing this, Mrs. Li and Tao Hongying also followed back. Ji Yan glanced at the Chen family in the pit. They originally thought they were saved, but after being delayed for so long, most of them started to roll their eyes in frustration. I just pretended I didn't see the good news and talked to my second uncle and said a few words. Li Lao nodded, his eyes falling on Mr. Chen Er without trace. He had just heard that something was wrong with Mr. Chen Er. Maybe he could find the key to Chen He's death. Soon, the Chen family members who had been thrown into the pit were being pulled out of the soil one after another like carrots. Come up and loosen the ties. After narrowly escaping death, many people were paralyzed and unable to get up. Their pants were soaked with feces and urine. Even if they were mixed with mud, they still stunk to the sky, making everyone disgusted. Li Lao pretended to be impatient and ordered in a loud voice, "Lock these 3 losers from the Chen family to the village, treat their wounds, don't let them die, and then think about finding some work for them. As for the rest of the people, take them to cut down trees and thatch, choose an open space to build a shed and a stove, and throw in a few bags of coarse grains to ensure that they don't starve to death or freeze to death. Let them start working tomorrow, and the villagers will supervise them. Remember to register and make a roster. Anyone who dares to run away will be treated as a fugitive slave. Report to Jingzayan and capture them and behead them." The village chief and the villagers responded loudly, and finally divided the work quickly and got busy. Li Laozi was talking to Jia Dun and others. Jia Dun and others came to help, so naturally they couldn't just go back. So, Li Laozi invited them to go home for lunch. Jia Dun and others were all excited and happy, and ordered dishes one after another. Especially Jia Dun, who was the first to shout loudly that he wanted to eat croquettes. Jiyan looked at the idle people who were still there, and called Lao He and others, as well as the women from Zinkan and Erkan. After a few brief instructions, he loaded Chen He's coffin into the car and went straight to the city to collect debts. Although most of the Chen family suffered a torment and lost most of their lives and will be left to do hard labor in the future, this is not enough to atone for their mistakes today. What Jiyan has to do is to make up for the price difference. Lao He rode into the city in advance and went to the relief office to find Yetong and asked a few words. Since Yetong was seconded to Li Lao as his master, he has been hiding behind the scenes. As for the details and past affairs of the new capital and each family, as well as the interests and plans of the court, Li Lao was indispensable for his guidance. Even if it is not convenient for Li Lao to come forward to contact the low-level connections left by Li Zhensheng, he is still maintaining them. Now that the master's family has an assignment, he is naturally ready to respond. Soon, when Jiyan and others arrived at the door of Chen's house, Lao He also arrived with the exact news. In the courtyard of the Chen family, Mrs. Chen was spinning her prayer beads and fidgeting. She whispered to her 2 sisters-in-law, "Today's matter is still too reckless. The Li family in Sujintan has a good reputation, and it is also the fiefdom of Princess Kangal. If the Li family goes to complain to the emperor, sister-in-law, you have been fasting and reciting Buddha's name for so many years, how come you have lost the courage to recite the Buddha's name?" Mrs. Chen raised her eyebrows and sneered, looking down on this timid sister-in-law. She continued, "Who do the Li family think they are? They say they are the princess, but they are actually just a girl of a few years old. They killed brother He and made our old lady angry to death. We just disgusted them and vented our anger. What's wrong? We didn't want to kill them or chop them up." Mrs. Chen Chuan's eyes were red and swollen from crying, and she really felt sorry for her son. Thinking of her son's tragic death, she gritted her teeth with hatred and said angrily, "Second sister-in-law is right, I can't wait to eat the Li family's meat and gnaw on the Li family's bones. My brother He, a good boy, died like this. Even if the murderer from the Li family didn't kill him intentionally, he still had something to do with it. How come I'm blinded by crying and they can still have a good new year? I have to say that it doesn't mean that one family does not enter the same house. The couple are being unreasonable." At this moment, there was a sudden commotion outside the second door, and screams and shattering sounds could be heard from time to time. The 3 sisters-in-law were all surprised. Mrs. Chen stood up and asked, "What happened? Are the master and the others back?" She was answered with a loud noise and the courtyard door being kicked open. The fourth update is here, and I finally paid back the chapter owed by number 1. End of this chapter. Dressed as a farm boy, he cheated on his way out of the desert. Author, Delayed Flowering. Chapter 704. Chapter 704, Door-to-Door Debt Collection. Mrs. Chen was startled and screamed. Several men broke in, then stood on either side of the door, and welcomed in a 7 or 8-year-old girl. The little girl has a very round figure, fair skin, and beautiful eyebrows. Wearing a small double-breasted coat with a bright red background embroidered with yellow jasmine flowers, a moon-white cocoon silk middle coat, and a garnet red pleated skirt with scattered flowers. Hair with only a few red gold hairpins in her jet black hair, and red jewel pendants hanging from her ears, adding a bit of nobility. The white fox fur cloak added style, almost wrapping the fat girl's whole body in it, making her warm and beautiful. The 3 sisters-in-law of the Chen family were shocked when they saw her. Thinking about it carefully, there should be no such outstanding little girl among their relatives and friends. Moreover, if your family is mourning, you should wear plain clothes even if relatives and friends come to visit you. This bright red outfit is so unruly. Mrs. Chen scolded her when she opened her mouth. Whose child are you from? Where are your parents and elders? Who taught you the rules? Not to mention breaking into the backyard privately, and wearing red and green, it is really arrogant. Needless to say, this fat girl is good news. She was here to make trouble and vent her anger, so how could she obey the rules? She glanced at the people in the yard and smiled mockingly. They say that the Chen family is as stupid as pigs, but I still don't believe it. Only after seeing it in person today do I know that what outsiders say is true. You, Master Chen, have hundreds of servants who carried the coffin, and you have done something bad, don't you know it in your mind? You actually ask me who the princess is. I am a Rakshasa here to demand my life. You, are you Princess Kangal? Mrs. Chen face was complicated. She immediately thought of going to the Li family to find her husband in trouble, so she shouted, "What about our family? What happened to you? You tell me quickly, otherwise I will ask someone to go to Jingzayin to report the crime. Who are you trying to scare as a child?" Jiyan rolled his eyes, impatient to talk to them anymore, and raised his hand to give an order. Mrs. Chen suddenly came out and said, "Princess, it's their fault that our family went to Sujintan to cause trouble. But our family is mourning now, please be noble and let our family send the old lady away quietly." After saying that, she clasped her hands together and bowed her head in salute. Jiyan shook his head and said without mercy at all, "You ask me to be arrogant. Then when 100 members of your family rushed to Broken Gold Beach carrying the coffin, did you persuade them to be arrogant to my Li family? If not, who would give you the face to have such double standards?" Mrs. Chen didn't know what the double standard meant, but she still blushed, lowered her head and recited the Buddha's name. Jiyan didn't hesitate anymore and ordered loudly, "Smash it! Don't leave anything behind. Since the Chen family wants our family to have no good life, then no one can live in peace." Lao He and dozens of other people picked up the sticks in their hands, ran to various houses and swung them away. No matter what vase, dressing table, or screen, everything you see is not immune. Click. Crack. Suddenly, the entire Chen family yard became lively. Mrs. Chen jumped in fright and quickly called her mother-in-law and maids to stop her. But Lao He and others are all good players. I was beaten up by Chen Jiaran before and suffered a loss. Now I can vent my anger. How can I be merciful? Whoever dares to stop them, they will smash people instead of things. As a result, the maids and women all over the yard were running around with their heads in their hands. Mrs. Chen Chuan remained silent and only stared at the good news quietly. Her son was killed by Li Laosi, and the fat girl in front of her was Li Laosi's daughter. If a life is given for a life, it can be regarded as retribution from heaven. She took two women with her and took advantage of the mess in the yard to get behind Jiyan. At this moment, there is only Dongmei beside Jiyan. Today, Yeshan went to Zhenjiazhuang to do business, while Dongmei stayed at home to sort out the small warehouse. At first I thought that the little master was playing in the conservatory at the back. He had food, drink, and warmth, so there would be nothing wrong with him. Who would have thought that the Chen family would make trouble like this? Just now, the young master wanted to go into the city to vent his anger, so she immediately followed him, just in case. Who would have thought that there are people who are really crazy and daring? Mrs. Chen Chuan rushed forward, with her hands spread out, and just grabbed Jiyan's neck. Dongmei turned around and gave her a kick, causing her to scream and fly backwards. The two women were stunned. Before they could react, Dongmei sent them off to stay with their master again. Jiyan turned around, glanced at them, and simply said, "Break her arm so she can have a memory." Dongmei immediately found a stick, walked over, and without saying a word, she hit Mrs. Chen Chuan's arm twice. Mrs. Chen Chuan screamed repeatedly, but the viciousness of the sneak attack just now was nowhere to be seen, and her body shrank like a cooked prawn. Dongmei hesitated for a moment, then broke the arms of the two women before taking back the stick. Mrs. Chen and Mrs. Chen under the eaves of the corridor, as well as some servants in the yard, were watching secretly, hoping that Jiyan would be strangled to death, but they never expected to see such a tragic scene. They were so frightened that their faces turned pale, they gritted their teeth and did not dare to shout. Soon, Lao He and others smashed up every yard. Except for Mrs. Chen's funeral shed, nothing in the Chen family was intact. In front of the main gate of Chen's house, Chen He's coffin was lying at the foot of the steps, attracting many people to look at it. Previously, the Chen family carried the coffin and ran to Sujintan to seek bad luck. Before everyone knew the result, Chen He's coffin was sent back again, but no one from the Chen family followed. Of course everyone is curious and wishes they could have 1,000 ears and listen to what is going on in Chen's yard. As a result, they were lucky today. The dozen or so women standing guard at the door of Chen's house actually added a huge amount of firewood to the flames of gossip in everyone's hearts. From the time when the Chen family carried the coffin to Sujintan to cause trouble, beat up people, and wanted to bury Chen He's coffin in front of the Li family, until the princess became angry and took the initiative to help fulfill the Chen family's wish and bury Chen He with him, and then to the palace an imperial edict was issued, and the Chen family was punished with hard labor for half a year, which was clearly stated. At the end, Xiao Kui, who was in charge of the leader, pointed to the Chen family's gate and said, "The imperial edict clearly states that the Chen family will double compensation for our losses to Broken Gold Beach. Our princess said that death is the most important thing, so she sent the Chen family's coffin back and came to collect the debt in person. The Chen family's morals are corrupt and they have no respect for their elders, so they must have defaulted on their debts." As soon as he finished speaking, Lao He and others opened the way and protected their master from inside. Jiyan glanced at the people in front of the door and said, "Not only did the Chen family refuse to pay the money, Mrs. Chen San also wanted to strangle the princess to death, which is really audacious. Let's go to Chen's shop to collect debts." After saying that, she got into the carriage and led everyone to the shopping street. The Chen family is dignified and well known in Xindu. How could they not be able to pay for compensation? When a smart person hears that the Li family is going to the shop, he understands that the Li family is going to continue destroying it. Everyone wanted to stay and watch the fun, but also wanted to follow the Li family's team to the shopping street. For a moment, they wanted to split their bodies in half. On the commercial street, the shopkeepers in Bianjian didn't know that such a big thing had happened to the owner's family. Shopkeeper Peng was greeting guests in the front hall. Occasionally he glanced outside the door and saw the owner's carriage passing by, so he followed it a few steps out of curiosity. However, they found that the princess jumped out of the car not far away, and the people behind the car rushed into the cloth shop diagonally opposite. End of this chapter. Dressed as a farm boy, he cheated on his way out of the desert. Author, Delayed Flowering. Chapter 705. Chapter 705. The tree fell and the hosen scattered. He hurried to the backyard, told Chen 11 to take care of the shop, and then ran over holding the long lapel of his cotton robe. Jiyan stood in front of the gate of Buzwang. Seeing the noise and mess inside, all the bad anger in his heart finally came out. It's not anyone's patent to smash it. If the Chen family dares to take people to the broken gold beach to run wild, they must be prepared to be treated the same way. Speaking of which, the Chen family's family background is really quite good. There are actually 3 shops in one shopping street, a cloth shop, a calligraphy and painting shop, and a restaurant. If you don't dig through the old Chen family today, it won't be enough to scare the monsters. When shopkeeper Peng ran over, a large number of onlookers gathered outside the shop. He didn't wait to ask a few questions, but Xiao Kui and other women loudly criticized the Chen family, and he understood clearly. He hurriedly stepped forward and saluted, "Master, I didn't know that such a big event happened at home, so I couldn't rush there. I hope my master will forgive me." Jiyan shook his head and said, "The city and the outside are far apart, so it's normal not to know. Just take care of Bianjian." While he was talking, the city defense army squad patrolling the streets arrived. Seeing that a shop was smashed, they would definitely stop and ask questions. Shopkeeper Peng hurried up to greet him, explained the whole story, and stuffed another piece of silver into his hand. Chen Chuan is the commander of the city defense army, but after his son's accident, he has been taking leave at home. Logically speaking, if something happens to the Chen family's shop, the city defense army should do their best to protect it. But shopkeeper Peng said that when the imperial edict arrived at Sujintan, Commander Chen would have to serve half a year of hard labor. It is not certain whether Chen Chuan can return to the city defense army. The captain of the city defense team was also flexible and asked his men to guard here while he ran back to report the news. Zindu is lacking everything now, except for people. One errand can be watched by hundreds of people. Now that Chen Chuan has made a mistake, it is a good opportunity. At least the deputy commander will be very happy to receive the news of the fall of the Chen family and take the opportunity to remove the subtitle. He, the good news bird, can also take advantage. In this way, the city defense army, not to mention protecting the Chen family's shop, followed behind and watched the excitement. Lao He and others left the cloth shop and ran to the calligraphy and painting shop. After leaving the calligraphy and painting shop, they smashed the restaurant again. The cloth shop and calligraphy and painting shop are okay, there are not many people. The restaurant was half full, and something like this happened suddenly. The diners no longer had to pay the bill, so they naturally had to ask questions. So the news that the Chen family had kicked the iron plate and Princess Kangol was angry spread throughout the new capital in an instant. Some people say that the Chen family's actions are too extreme. The Ministry of Punishment has never investigated the results, so how can it be found that the Li family is guilty and did such a disgusting thing as bringing a coffin to the door? Some people say that the Li family is unforgiving and should be considerate of the Chen family's pain of losing their son and mother. Even if the Chen family is at fault, they should be more tolerant. But regardless of whether people in the world are fair or standing and talking without pain in the back, Jiyan let out a strong sigh of relief, and Broken Gold Beach also gained hundreds of coolies. And the Chen family finally heard the news and knew that the men and slaves had been left behind in Broken Gold Beach. The 3 sisters-in-law were completely panicked. The old lady is still waiting to pay her respects. Of the 2 grandchildren, one was away, the other died suddenly, and the remaining unmarried girls were of no use at all. If the 3 men cannot go home for half a year, the Chen family will completely collapse. More than that, the Chen family's slaves who were left behind at Broken Gold Beach were just returned, but the more than 30 veterans among them were not slaves. Now, the veterans' families have come to the compound to cry and complain. "Madam, our old man is over 50 years old, but he can't do hard labor, this will cost him his life." "Yeah, MRS MRS. I said yes, just to go with a strong momentum. Woohoo, there's no more rice in the tank." MRS Chen Chuan was originally the housekeeper at home, but now that her hands were broken and she was half dead in pain, she couldn't care about these people at all. MRS Chen took the opportunity to get the key to the warehouse and took over the errand. But she was reluctant to give these people money and food, and refused to give them money until a few days later. The house was in chaos and she couldn't take care of them. After these people reluctantly left, she began to pack good things into her room, and then secretly sent them back to her parents' house, asking her brothers to help hide them. She and her second master had no sons, only one legitimate daughter and 2 concubines. The old lady has passed away, and it is inevitable that the Chen family will be divided. It is a wise choice to seize some good things in advance. 10,000 steps back, if anything happens to Mr. Chen she will take her daughter and leave, and she will also have family wealth with her. The slaves saw the master's behavior and were naturally frightened. It is convenient to embezzle money and falsely report accounts. If there is nothing convenient, just find some things to take out and sell secretly. The big tree is about to fall, and the Hosens all have their own plans. MRS Chen's natal family is in the southwest border. She couldn't find anyone to help her, so she could only stay in the Buddhist hall every day. For a time, the huge Chen family looked like a messy market. Under such circumstances, no one would take serious care of the old lady's body in the funeral shed. In the middle of the night, several people came in to conduct an autopsy, but no one found it. Even the fact that there was a mother-in-law or a servant missing in the family did not attract anyone's attention. No matter whether it is joy or sorrow, life always goes by leisurely. 3 or 5 days passed in a flash. After a snowstorm, the earth was covered more and more tightly. This evening, Mr. Ho returned to the village, and the Li family cooked hot pot directly, which was convenient and warm. Manager Yi took away 2 baskets of vegetables in the greenhouse last time, and he also picked a lot of fruits. But Jiyan has space and a small courtyard to back him up, so how can he lack food and drink at home? As usual, 2 tables were opened. A brass mandarin duck pot was placed in the middle of the big round table in the main room, with spicy bone soup on one side and nutritious mushroom soup on the other, both of which were boiling. The surroundings were filled with green vegetables, white fish balls, green shrimp paste, red mutton slices, and dark fungus. It was so rich that it almost collapsed the table. There was a large square Kong table on the fire bed in the east room. MRS Li brought Tao Hongying, Jiyan, Wenjuan, and MRS Wen, as well as Dongmei, sister-in-law Kaiyan, Aunt Tian, and Aunt He, who all gathered around the table to eat. Lively. Shui Ling and Shui Yun were taking care of the food on the ground. Halfway through the meal, they were kicked out by MRS Li to join Zheng He and the others in the kitchen. Orange MRS Li asked her daughter-in-law, "You also sent a copper pot later?" Tao Hongying boiled a spoonful of shrimp and gave it to her daughter. She smiled and said, "Yes, Mom. I originally wanted to invite the village chief uncle and Uncle Zhao to come over to eat, but it was dark and the road was slippery. It was too cold, so I was afraid they would drink it. After drinking, I fell down again. I simply sent the things over and added a jar of wine, so that Lu Baiatu's family, Hui Niang, mother and son could all have a good time together. Even if uncle and the others are drunk, they just go to bed, so we won't have to worry about it." "Yes, you are very thoughtful." MRS Li nodded and praised her daughter-in-law. "When people get old, they are afraid of falling. After lying on the Kong for a few months, your life will be over." Mrs. Wen smiled and said, I see that the village chief uncle and Uncle Zhao are usually quite nimble in their legs and feet. These days, the Chen family's people are digging ditches. The uncles are following them all day long, and they are shouting very energetically. Everyone laughed when they heard this. End of this chapter. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. Dressed as a farm boy, he cheated on his way out of the desert. Author, Delayed Flowering. Chapter 706. Chapter 706 Late Night Small Class. Mrs. Lee said, they are angry. Originally they said they would dig ditches in the spring, but now someone is doing the work. They deserve it, let them suffer a little, so that they don't have bad ideas in their heads and live a good life. They are so disgusting, Wen Wan couldn't help but cursed. She was still angry when she remembered the panic and worry she felt while hiding in the yard with Mrs. Wen that day. Jiyan smiled and gave her sister-in-law a fishball and advised her, if sister-in-law is not angry, my little nephew will not be beautiful when he is born. Eat fishballs, and your little nephew will be smart. Wen Juan blushed and bit off half of the fishball in one bite. Okay, when your nephew grows up, let him learn martial arts. If anyone dares to come to the house to cause trouble, we will beat them with teeth everywhere. I can't say for sure, it depends on the child's nature. Old Mrs. Lee was open-minded and said with a smile, if the child follows his father, he will be good at cooking, and at least he will have food and drink for the rest of his life. Tao Hongying took over the conversation and said, Mom, the restaurant is too busy at this time, and I haven't come back from the family fun for several days. I will go to the restaurant to stay for a few days tomorrow to have a rest. But here at home, we have to prepare New Year's goods, so it's going to be you. Okay, you can go and help Jia Huan. Mrs. Lee was very happy and said, it's all small things at home, just have me take care of them. Don't be too tired, you and Jia Huan, you can't make enough money of. I know, Mother. Tao Hongying responded with a smile, then added more food to her daughter, whispering threats and threats. I'm not at home, you are not allowed to cause trouble, and listen to Grandma, okay, let me know what trouble you are making, and I will. Tao Hongying thought for a long time, as if her daughter really had nothing to do with it, so she said cruelly, I will cut off your dividends everywhere, so that you can't get a single silver ingot. Jiyan held a fishball in his mouth, his cheeks were bulging, and his head was really full of black lines. She will be 1 year older soon. She was almost buried alive in a rage earlier. Why is she still an ignorant child in my eyes? But there is no way, who let her come out of other people's belly? She will never grow up in their eyes. She could only respond obediently, Mom, don't worry, I will be obedient and help Grandma prepare New Year's goods. That's pretty much it. Tao Hongying was satisfied and rewarded her daughter with a chopstick of fungus. Jiyan didn't like eating fungus, and was afraid that my mother would continue to nag her, so she took the small bowl and slipped into the main room. She sat down between her adoptive father and her father, and sure enough, the fungus in the small bowl was taken away and replaced with fragrant mutton and shrimp balls. The good news made me laugh so hard that I couldn't see my eyesight, and I buried my head in eating to my heart's content. Mr. Ho, Li Lao and Li Lao Si saw the fat girl's appearance and smiled. Children are always the best of their own family. In the past few days, there has been an uproar in Kyoto, and people want to say that this girl is like a green-faced and fanged devil. But they know best that this child is a greedy and playful child. The only negative factor is family. However, they don't want to correct other people's ideas. It is much better to be feared than to be bullied. Mr. Ho peeled off a shrimp with his own hands, put it into the fat girl's bowl, and said to Li Lao and Li Lao Si, the secret guards investigated a lot of things. Chen He's hibiscus paste was sent to the military camp by Chen Lao. The old lady of the Chen family was also poisoned by Chen Lao. The taste is slightly bitter, the murder is invisible, and no trace can be found. The only drawback is that after 3 days, the poisoned person's legs will have snakeskin-like markings and the toes will turn black. In Mrs. Chen's yard, the woman he bribed and his trusted personal servant all confessed, and they were convinced. If you want to tell Chen Chuan, you can ask someone to testify at any time. Li Lao thought for a while, looked at his younger brother and said, "Fourth brother, you will have to suffer for a few more days. This hibiscus ointment involves too much, I'm afraid it will. We also need to track down the person behind Chen Lao. Now tell Chen Chuan, it's easy to scare the snake away if you make a fuss." Li Laozi nodded and responded, "Okay, now that the investigation has been completed, it is not necessary to miss these few days. It just so happens that I can stay at home for a few more days and have a good new year." The Marquis poured them wine and said, "This matter is indeed unexpectedly serious." This time Ding Camp had a 3-day holiday. When the soldiers returned to the team, more than a dozen of them were found to have brought hibiscus paste. Fortunately, the vacation was short, and they were only taken to Yaokai once. Now I have people imprison them in the cook camp, and the hibiscus ointment is also confiscated. The person behind Yaokai is hidden too deeply, and it will take more time to investigate. Almost half of the children of the aristocratic families are imprisoned in Dingza camp. The Yaokai cannot be open to the public. They must be more anxious than us. Being anxious will make mistakes, and it will be easier to catch the fox by the tail." Li Lao nodded, "I won't let anyone investigate this matter anymore. I'm careful not to be helpful. But I haven't withdrawn the personnel from the eldest princess's residence or the Wang family. It's better to keep an eye on them just in case. Okay, these two families are like venomous snakes in the dark. They might bite someone when they get cold, so there's nothing wrong with being more prepared." The Marquis said, "When you go out on weekdays, in addition to Zheng Feng and Zheng He, take Zheng Sanjiang with you, his ability is the best at all times." These words reminded Jiyan, so she interrupted and asked, "Father, apart from you, the people at Zhenjiazhuang, are there others who can give orders?" With a flash of his eyes, Mr. Ho understood the hidden meaning of her words, so he smiled and said, "Don't worry, Zhenjiazhuang is just an old servant of my mother's family, and others don't know their details. Zindu is my mother's hometown, and everyone in Zhenjiazhuang has lived here for generations. I personally arranged and trained all the people. You can feel free to give me orders if you have anything to do. They only recognized me as their master before, but they will only have you as their little master in the future." Jiyan felt relieved and gave her adoptive father a chopstick of meat with a smile. "Thank you so much, adoptive father. I was worried before, but I won't be worried anymore." Hoya rubbed her hair and said, "You are right, you can't care less about anyone at any time. You give yourself some leeway, and at the critical moment you have some hope of survival." Li Lao and Li Lao Si also nodded in response. They talked about some small things they encountered in daily life and took this opportunity to give the fat girl a small class. The night outside the door is getting darker, but the hot pot on the table is boiling more and more. Getting up early the next day, Tao Hongying made simple arrangements at home and then took the car into the city. Huanayang and sister-in-law Lu heard about the Li family's steamed bean buns and brought their children to join in the fun. Mama Tian and Aunt He were responsible for taking care of the 3 naughty children, and Mrs. Li led Huanayang, sister-in-law Lu, sister-in-law Dongmei and sister-in-law Kaiyan to make bean buns. Wenjuan and Mrs. Wen also wanted to help, but the old lady drove them away to sew the bag. Nowadays, the Li family also has many relatives and friends walking around. It is inevitable to give gifts during the Chinese New Year, so these small things must be prepared. Jiyan hugged a medical book and sat next to her grandma, reading and listening to the gossip. Actually, it's to secretly stuff bean paste into your mouth. This kind of bean paste ball is made by boiling red beans in a pot, adding sugar and beating them into a batter-like consistency, and then forming them into balls. It tastes very sweet while it's hot. Mrs. Lee made 5 bean buns, but her granddaughter ate a dozen of them. Just when she was about to laugh and scold her, a carriage came outside the door. End of this chapter. Dressed as a farm boy, he cheated on his way out of the desert. Author, delayed flowering. Chapter 707. Chapter 707. My sister has no worries about getting married. It turned out that Mrs. brought the orb as a guest. Beza ran almost all the way in from outside the courtyard gate, shouting, "Sister Jian, Sister Jian." Jian quickly jumped down to the ground and hugged the orb. The 2 fat girls held hands happily, jumping and shouting, making everyone laugh. At this time, Grandma He also led Mrs. in. Mrs. smiled and saluted old Mrs. Lee, then took Mrs. Wen's hand and said to old Mrs. Lee, "I really envy Jinro, these days of pregnancy are so lively and enjoyable. Having an old lady who loves her so much is like being at her mother's house every day. She feels so comfortable." Mrs. Lee was coaxed into laughing and said, "Don't they say that when 1 sheep is being driven, 2 sheep are being herded? My Wenjuan is also pregnant. It just so happens that they will be companions together. Oh, it turns out that my aunt has treated me like a sheep. Mrs. Wen rarely behaved like a little girl. I'm so sad. I originally sewed a coat for my aunt, but I'm going to keep it and wear it myself." Mrs. Lee is also a funny person. She quickly acted along and changed her words in a panic. No, it's not about herding sheep. We, Jinro, are tigers, tigresses." Everyone laughed so hard that the room was very lively. Mrs. didn't come out either. She washed her hands, took off her shoes and got on the kong, and followed her to make bean buns. She is a girl from the south of the Yangtze River. She has never eaten, let alone cooked, the traditional food of the north. But she was very handy and learned quickly. Jian and Beza joined in the fun for a while, said hello to the elders, and then ran to the greenhouse to eat fruit. Mrs. Lee was worried about her eldest grandson's daughter-in-law, so she asked, "How is Wanner's mother doing lately? It's been more than a month. How far has she recovered?" "Auntie, when it comes to this, I have to thank you very much on behalf of my brother and his family." Mrs. was even more happy when she mentioned her sister-in-law, and said, "My sister-in-law is getting better and better day by day. She has a bigger appetite and can eat more, moved around a lot. Yesterday, she accompanied my brother to enjoy the plum blossoms. My brother was so drunk that he was so happy that he sent someone to send me a message overnight, asking me to say hello to my aunt. On the first day of the Lunar New Year, he will come to the house to pay New Year greetings to his aunt and thank her." Mrs. Lee quickly waved her hand. "If you want to thank Dr. Zhang, you should thank her. I don't have much credit. Besides, your sister-in-law and Wanner also live at Jinro's place. Our family really can't help much." "No, Auntie," Mrs. insisted, "both Divine Dr. Zhang and Jinro are naturally grateful, but without you coming forward, how could Divine Dr. Zhang find time to treat my sister-in-law in his busy schedule? Old madam, you are the reincarnated Bodhisattva. My mother passed away early, and from now on I will treat you as my filial mother. Don't blame me for being out-tempered and always coming to pester you." Before Mrs. Lee could speak, Mrs. Wen had already taken the lead. "Oh, why did you come here today? It turns out you are trying to steal my mother from me. I have long been as close to my aunt as my mother. Even if you have this intention, you have to stand behind me. No. When I was studying, you fought with me for everything, and now I can't let you do it." Mrs. made a fierce look and started to quarrel with Mrs. Wen, which made everyone laugh even more. Mrs. Lee quickly pulled the 2 eldest children away and said with a smile, "I just want to live a lively life. You are willing to treat my place as your mother's home. It is a good thing to move around more. There is no need to fight. Our family is short of everything else, but there is no shortage of delicious food. As long as you come, I will keep it to feed you. Haha, old lady, I've been waiting for your words, Madame Gier shouted as if her plot had succeeded. The basket of oranges you gave me last time was so delicious. This time, people should reward me with a basket more. I'm not taking advantage. This time I brought 2 deer legs, a basket of fresh lotus roots, and a bucket of live fish to add 2 delicious dishes to the family table. Mrs. Lee was not polite and said, "Okay, if you don't tell me, I will inevitably go to your house to get the fruit. Bezu and Funiu have already gone to the greenhouse. Your daughter is definitely a good robber and she will never lose her words." Mrs. Gier laughed and clapped her hands and said, "Old madam is still amazing. She immediately guessed why I brought the orb." Her jokes made everyone laugh all the time, and they also liked her cheerful temper even more. After chatting for a while, Mrs. Gier said, "Old madam, actually I have one more thing to do here today." Mrs. Chen's third wife's father was Mr. Lin, the father-in-law of Mr. Chen Chuan. He had some friendship with my deceased father. Mrs. Chen San felt sorry for her husband and the house was in chaos, so she went back to her parents' house to bring in reinforcements. The Lin family somehow heard that I was close to our family. They sent someone to visit me yesterday and asked me to intercede with our family and want to send Chen Chuan back. Everyone frowned when they heard this. Before they could speak, Mrs. Gier added a few more words. "For reasons of kindness, I came here and took the strip. Even if I tried my best, it is enough to repay the Lin family's favor. As for how our family wants to use Chen Chuan, we can do it without considering what I just said. Just go in through one ear and out through the other." It was only then that everyone in the Li family realized that Mrs. Gier came here to show off and did not want to force the Li family to release her. Mrs. Wen glared at Mrs. Gier, smiled and scolded, "Why can't you explain everything clearly at once? It makes me worry and think you have been bribed." Mrs. Gier raised her chin and said, "I would like to be bribed, but it's a pity that other people's oranges are not as sweet as ours. Who do I think Basil looks like when he is greedy? It turns out he looks like a mother like you," Mrs. Wen joked, and the room became lively again. Mrs. Gier slowly told everyone the details of the Lin family, which also meant that the Li family should be more careful. Everyone in the Li family nodded and listened carefully. The Li family fled from the famine in the north. Even when they had no foundation, the Wen family and the Lu family could rely on each other for help. With a big family like the Chen family, there must be more in-laws and old friends, and there are many branches and branches involved. I don't know how many people are involved. Being more prepared and understanding is never a bad thing. In the greenhouse in the back garden of the home mansion, Baozu was biting a banana and said vaguely to Jiyan, "Sister Jiyan, you don't know, someone said something bad about you the day before yesterday, and I scolded her until she cried." "Really? Who said bad things about me?" "You went out to be a guest again." Jiyan peeled off the tangerine peel and gave a piece of the orb from time to time without paying much attention. Seeing her like this, Baozu became anxious. "Sister Jiyan, why aren't you angry? They scolded you. They are all uneducated bad girls." As she spoke, she actually hugged Jiyan's neck and started crying. "What they said is wrong. Sister Jiyan is not a bad person, she is not a cannibalistic female devil." Jiyan didn't know whether to laugh or cry, and quickly patted her back and comforted her, "You are my friend, you just know that I am good. As for the other people, I don't know them, and I don't want to pay attention to what they say." "Woo," Baozu cried for a long time, feeling very sad. Finally, she wiped away her tears and said solemnly, "Sister Jiyan, they said you can't get married in the future. Don't be afraid. When you are old enough, I will let my brother marry you. My brothers are all fine. You can choose whoever you like and marry whomever you like. If they dare not agree, I will ignore them." End of this chapter. Dressed as a farm boy, he cheated on his way out of the desert. Author, delayed flowering. Chapter 708. Chapter 708, What a move to lure the tiger away from the mountain. Ahem, Jiyan was caught off guard and was arranged to get married. The orange in her mouth almost ran into her trachea, choking her and making her cough non-stop. Well, Bezu, I'm not afraid of not being able to get married. We're not in a hurry about getting married. Jiyan quickly changed the subject and asked, who are these people who said bad things about me? Please tell me their names. If we meet them in the future, I will deal with them too. Good. Sure enough, Bezu immediately changed his mind, stared with big eyes, and concentrated on complaining. Mrsjia's mother and daughter had lunch at Li's house, and brought a box of sticky rice pancakes that they had made. They put them in a frying pan and fried them until they floated. Then Mrsjia could have a hot fried cake. Of course, it is indispensable to bring a few baskets of fruit. The two girls returned home with a full load, and happily went back to do business. Li took the initiative to freeze the deer legs and put in the fresh lotus roots, but the live fish was sent to the second village and asked Xiaoqi to stew it for everyone to eat. Earlier, when the Chen family came to cause trouble, the men, women, and children from the second village risked their lives to rush forward. Nowadays, there are still a few who are recuperating from their injuries. Fortunately, the injured didn't have to eat anything. These live fish were stewed with tofu and cabbage, which was enough for the young and old in the two villages to eat. Shui Ling was lively and took away the errand boy's job. He took the fish bucket and went to look for Xiaokui. Xiaokui is talking to Hui Niang at the Kong family. Sister-in-law Kong was seriously injured, but extremely disgraceful. Last night, Kong King he came back from the military camp with Mr. Ho and found out that something happened to his wife. Of course sister-in-law Kong couldn't say she was at fault, she kept saying that others were bullying her. Hong King he had some doubts in his heart, so he decided to ask questions today. This daughter-in-law was chosen for him by his family, and he didn't know much about it. He went home occasionally in the past few years, coming and going in a hurry. Fortunately, the daughter-in-law became pregnant and gave birth to a boy. Previously, the remaining brothers wanted to settle in the second village. He came home and saw that his wife and children were not doing well at home, so he tried his best to make his parents angry and took his wife and children over. His son is currently studying in school and his wife is working in a workshop. He can also go home for reunions frequently, which is a great thing no matter how you look at it. Even recently, he planned to let his wife have another child. If it was a little girl, they would be a couple, and they would have both a son and a daughter. He is the Marquis personal guard, and he will go to war again after the new year. In case something goes wrong, at least there is blood left and someone to carry on the incense. Unexpectedly, he had an errand in the morning and he went out in a hurry. He had been busy for most of the day. As soon as he came back from the city in the afternoon, Xiaoqi and Huaniang came to his door. Xiaoqi's husband Erniu is the deputy commander of the personal guard. He is very strong and down to earth. Almost everyone in the personal guard team has been rescued by him, and he is very popular. Huaniang's husband Li Yong, not to mention. The three people that Lord Ho trusted most in the Northern Expeditionary Army, apart from Li Laozi and Zhang Cheng, were Li Yong. Li Yong was originally a scholar and the son of the Yan family. In order to break away from the shackles of the family, he resolutely severed ties, married a wife and had children, and joined the army. Such an experience is also a legend in the military. Huaniang and Xiaoqi are also good at writing and calculating, and they are considerate and fair in dealing with things. They have never made any mistakes in managing the second village for so long, and they are very prestigious. Kong King he welcomed them into the house to sit down, and when he saw his wife shrinking her neck and pretending to be dead, he felt a thump in his heart and felt bad. As expected, Huaniyang and Xiaoqui did not delay and directly explained their intention. Xiaoqui spoke quickly, glared at sister-in-law Kong, and said to Kong King He, "Brother Kong, your wife can no longer stay in the second village. I hope you can find a way to send her away as soon as possible. When we first moved to Erkin, I took her and the other sisters-in-law to Li's house to salute the old lady, and the old lady gave her some fabrics and snacks. Everyone else was very happy, but she was the only one who disliked the lack of things and complained that the old lady didn't reward gold and silver jewelry. She also said something bad about the Li family in private out of your favor. I didn't argue with her. After the workshop opened, everyone went to work, and she said she was not in good health and could not do heavy work, so I arranged for her to go to the greenhouse and watch the firewood be added. As a result, she violated the rules of the workshop and took wet clothes to the greenhouse several times to dry them together with the noodles. I criticized her a few times, but she also complained that I was targeting her. We discussed with several stewards and decided not to let her work in the workshop. But she held a grudge and did another stupid thing that was chilling. A few days ago, the Chen family came to Broken Gold Beach carrying a coffin to cause trouble. She encountered them when they entered the city, and she took a shortcut and ran back. Whoever it was, I would have reported the news to everyone at this time, so that the master's family would be on guard, right? When Xiaoqui said this, her face turned red with anger. She pointed at sister-in-law Kong and started to curse. In the end, this wolf-hearted thing not only failed to report the news, but also said that she had a stomachache and was going to have a miscarriage. He forced the 4 big brothers guarding the gate to remove the door panel and carry her to seek help from the miracle Dr. Zhang. Then something happened. Tune the tiger away from the mountain. As a result, when the Chen family arrived at the wooden gate, no one stopped them, and no one knew about it. They walked directly through the wooden gate and almost rushed into the new village carrying the coffin. If Brother He hadn't happened to see it, the coffin would have smashed into the Li family compound. Do you think she is wicked or hateful? Kong King He heard his head rumbling and looked at his wife who was sleeping on the same bed as if he were looking at a stranger. He is the Marquis personal guard. Nothing else matters. Loyalty comes first. But he never expected that his wife would actually become a traitor. The traitor who distracts his own people at the critical moment and makes things convenient for the enemy. No wonder the brothers always looked at him with a bit of complexity and pity in their eyes these past few days. It turns out it's pity that he has such a traitorous wife. He couldn't bear it any longer, rushed to the Kong, raised his hand and slapped his wife twice. Sister-in-law Kong screamed in pain and could no longer pretend to be dead. So she hugged her husband's arm tightly and cried out. "Wu, head of the family, I was wronged. I don't know why the Chen family is here to cause trouble. I just had a stomachache and bleeding. I thought I was going to have a miscarriage, so I asked the old guard to carry me to the doctor. Wu, I want to give you a daughter, I really didn't mean it." Xiaoqui jumped up angrily and wanted to quarrel with her, but Madame Hui gave her a hand and spoke warmly. "Brother Kong, we are also afraid of wrongly accusing Sister Kong, so we have also done some investigations in the past few days." When the Chen family carried the coffin out of the city that day, sister-in-law Kong was standing on the roadside, and some villagers in Xiaoangjuan could see it clearly. Sister-in-law Kong took a shortcut and ran to the second village. The villagers in Xiaoangjuan thought she was coming back to report a message, so they didn't follow her. They went to find them and organized people to help. How can I imagine that sister-in-law Kong has opened the door for the enemy? If sister-in-law Kong still wants to quibble, she can also bring in the folks from Xiaoangjuan to confront her. Even when Dr. Zhang rushed to the entrance of the village to treat the injured villagers, he saw sister-in-law Kong lying on the roadside. He thought she had had an accident and took her pulse first. She's not pregnant, and it's not even the day to change her body. There's no way she's bleeding and has a stomachache. Sister-in-law Kong's face turned pale, her eyes were rolling around, trying to find reasons and excuses, but when she saw her husband's face full of anger and contempt, she simply threw it away. Woo, why do you think so of me, you loser? If you were capable, could I be bullied? Even if you can't do it, I will find a way to take revenge on my own. I didn't do anything, I just transferred people away, so what? There are more than 100 people from the Chen family, and there are only 4 gatekeepers. Even if they guard the bridge, it's useless. End of this chapter. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. Dressed as a farm boy, he cheated on his way out of the desert. Author, Delayed Flowering. Chapter 709. Chapter 709, Born to be a Bitch. Huanayang and Xiaokui really couldn't stand listening anymore. They were afraid that they could not help but rush up and tear this wolf-hearted woman alive. Huanayang and Xiaokui stood up, and Huanayang said, "Brother Kong, the village must not dare to leave such a scourge behind. It's up to you to deal with it, whether you make peace with her or send her back to her hometown." In addition, the old lady and the princess didn't say anything to the Li family. They were just afraid that you would be caught in the middle and it would be difficult, and they were also afraid that the Marquis would find out and lose face. But it was your daughter-in-law who made the mistake. Now that you know it, you can't pretend to be confused. You should go over there as soon as possible to make a mistake. The old lady and the princess are both generous people. No matter how angry everyone was if you didn't come back before, neither the old lady nor the princess agreed to kick Sister Kong out. It can be said that they are the most benevolent and righteous people. Kong King he took a deep breath and quickly nodded in agreement. Okay, thank you two brothers and sisters for reminding me. I will definitely deal with it well and not cause any more trouble to the village. Huanayang and Xiaokui then said goodbye and left. When they went out, they met Shui Ling, who gave them live fish. They were both happy. They called the women in the village for help, and soon started stewing fish in an iron pot. That night, just after the Li family had dinner and Mr. Ho was chatting with the old lady, Kong King he and his son went to the door and knelt down to apologize. Ms. Li had asked her younger son before and knew that Kong King he was usually very good. When something like this happened, it was really his wife's own doing and had nothing to do with him. I can only say that a good man does not have a good wife. She didn't want to embarrass such a good man, so she helped him up with her own hands and comforted him a few words. Even though sister-in-law Kong is unreasonable and makes people angry, she cannot be the reason for angering the whole family. The boy from the Kong family was very smart and good at reading. He insisted on kneeling down and kowtowed 3 times for his mother. After hearing a few words, the Marquis understood the cause and effect and frowned. Originally, he agreed to the guards moving their families here so that they would have no worries. Unexpectedly, a sheep dung egg suddenly appeared in a pot of good soup. Kong King he was also discerning and immediately said, "Master Ho, I would like to take a few days off to send my mother back to her hometown to reconcile. I will never let her appear in Sujintan again in the future. But the child is still studying. I beg the Marquis and the old lady to allow him to stay in the village." Mr. Ho looked at Ms. Li and said nothing. Ms. Li thought for a while and then said, "What's going on with you and your wife? The village won't care about it, as long as she doesn't appear in Broken Gold Beach again. As for the child, there is nothing wrong with him and he must continue to study. But we must teach good children and let them know right and wrong. Don't harbor hatred and destroy the unity of the village in the future." "No," Kong King he quickly took his son and saluted again, "Don't worry, old lady, this child is smart and won't be indifferent to right from wrong." After a few more idle words, the father and son took their leave. The Marquis stood up and saluted, and wanted to apologize to old Ms. Li for his subordinates, but old Ms. Li pulled her up and said angrily, "It's not your fault that you got involved in something. I was just afraid that you would do this, so I didn't tell you." The Marquis let it go when he saw this, but after returning home, he still gave Yeshan a few words. From now on, All matters in the village, no matter how big or small, must be reported to him promptly. What happened today must not happen again. Early on the next morning, Kong King he entrusted his child to a neighbor, hired a carriage, and took his wife back to his hometown. His hometown is not too far away, more than 100 miles away. But sister-in-law Kong's leg was broken and the road was bumpy. She started to cry in pain before she even got out of Broken Gold Beach. But the pain was one thing, and what she was more afraid of was what would happen next. Kong King he is away from home all year round. Although she gave birth to a son, she is still bullied and exploited in her husband's family. Fortunately, Kong King he knew he felt sorry for her and the child and took them out. I thought I would be in charge of the family in the future, but unfortunately she was born to be a bitch, and she started to drift off as soon as she had a good life. She saw that the people in the village were unwilling to argue with her, and the Lee family members would not agree with her, so she started to make mistakes again and again, and finally kicked the iron plate and ruined her good life. This time I went back to my hometown. If I stayed at the Kong family, I would definitely have to work as a cow and a horse in exchange for food. In case of reconciliation, he will be returned to his natal family. If her parents died early, her money-grubbing brother and sister-in-law would definitely sell her to a bachelor for a dowry gift. But no matter how scared or crying she was, the road she chose was her own, and she had to walk on her knees. Everyone in the second village was talking about this matter. Of course no one said anything bad about the host's family. They all lamented that sister-in-law Kong was too capable and ruined the good life. The men of each family have their wives in their arms and scare them again and again, fearing that they will also be stupid and break up the good family. Before noon, 3 more carriages came on the official road, but they were not others. It was Li Lao-san and his wife, Aunt Wu, and others who came back to celebrate the new year. When everyone in the new village heard about it, they all came out to say hello, and the village immediately became lively. The Li family is also happy. They haven't seen the third son and his wife for a long time. Aunt Wu Sanzi and others were anxious to go home and tidy up the house they had not lived in for a long time. The villagers came to help and chatted with them. Li Lao-san and Zhao Yuru were also welcomed into the house. Ji Yan was in the greenhouse. When he heard the news, he hurried back and hugged his third uncle and his wife, also smiling happily. Zhao Yuru rubbed her niece's hair, asked anxiously about what happened before, and cursed, "What's going on with the Chen family? Who dared them to drive our family away to cause trouble? Everyone outside is talking about how awesome Fu Niu is, and it makes me want to kill someone. Who's been bullied to the door and can't fight back? A bunch of idiots who stand and talk without hurting their backs." Li Lao-san also had a bad look on his face, and even said, "Mom, the children will no longer study in the academy, and we will no longer be a canteen. When there's something going on at home, we're always away and can't help." Mrs. Li quickly comforted her son and daughter-in-law and said with a smile, "There are so many people in the family, and you two are the only ones missing. Besides, our family is not easy to bully this time." The Chen family was frightened out of their wits. Others knew this and would not dare to cause trouble again in the future. If you need to do business, do business. Just come back 2 more times when you have nothing to do. Li Lao-san and Zhao Yuru said nothing more and turned to ask for details. They had heard a few words from outsiders before, and they were very anxious. Seeing that the academy would not have a holiday for another 3 to 5 days, they ran to ask Dean Zhou for leave. Their original intention was to come back early and let the college students eat meals on the small streets outside for a few days. As a result, Dean Zhou also wanted to go out to an old friend's flower appreciation poetry party, so he simply gave the students a winter vacation and started school again on the 16th day of the first lunar month of the new year. The nearly 1-month vacation made the students extremely happy. Li Lao-san also quickly packed up his things and came home quickly. Mrs. Li was most happy to have her children and grandchildren back home. She couldn't help but say, I don't know where your eldest brother has taken the children. It's almost the new year. If you come back early, you can have more fun. Everyone also nodded, and Li Laozi said, I have nothing to do these days and go to the dock to greet the fleet. Li Laosan quickly agreed, okay, take me with you and let's go together. Not to mention that the family is worried about it, but at a dock 200 miles away from Zindu, the Li family's fleet is docked to load food and water. The Jiaran brothers, Luzong and Jiasu all wore thick jackets and trousers, and their cheeks were roughened by the cold wind, but they were in good spirits. Working as a boatman along the way, I did a lot of work and gained a lot of knowledge. Naturally, they have become more familiar with each other. Brother Cat was so excited that he jumped up and down and shouted, I want to eat hot pot as my first meal after I get home. Rub a chopstick of mutton, dip it in sesame sauce, and stuff it into a big mouthful. Woo, I'm so happy, I'm so greedy that I want to eat 2 plates of mutton. Everyone laughed when they heard this. Luzong said, so, no matter what, we must shamelessly go to Sujintan to have a taste of this hot pot. You mentioned it at least a dozen times along the way. Everyone was laughing. Just as Jiaran was about to invite him, he saw a man who looked like a steward coming to the side of the boat. Luzong's servant hurriedly greeted him. End of this chapter. Dressed as a farm boy, he cheated on his way out of the desert. Author, Delayed Flowering. Chapter 710. Chapter 710 Returning like an arrow. Jiaran and his brothers did not shy away and looked over openly. Originally, it was a bit rude to be like this, but since the incident of selling one's body to bury their father, Luzong and Jiasu have relied on the Li family. Eating, living, traveling, and spending almost all time with their brothers. On the way back to the city, they did rough work together, smelled the smell of fish, blew the cold wind, wiped their noses together, and squatted on the deck to eat dry food. Luzong and Jiasu did not complain about hardship. The two of them are also well-read and knowledgeable in conversation, and they don't have the squeamishness and arrogance of young men from aristocratic families. Slowly, they became familiar and harmonious with each other, no less than brothers, but much closer than friends. At this moment, it was obvious that Luzong's people had sent the news, and they were also curious. As a result, Luzong took the letter from the servant, read it roughly, and handed it to Jiaran. Jiaran, look at the news from Kyoto. There was a little trouble in your family, but it's over now, so there's no need to worry. Jiaran was startled. After reading 10 lines at a glance, he frowned and told everyone, wait a moment, I will go and talk to the uncle. After saying that, he turned around and left. Brother Li and Brother Mao became more and more curious. After reading it, they jumped up in anger. Brother Cat yelled, you are so bold and bold. What kind of Chen family actually bullied us in front of our house? Brother Li also sneered, to be able to bury Fu Niu were so angry that she must have been very dangerous at that time. Jiasu was confused when he heard it, but no one could explain it to him, so he could only grab the letter and read it again. He actually smiled and said, my brother is usually a straightforward person, but I don't think he would have such courage this time and take the nurse to Sujintan to help. It seems that joining the army is not a bad thing. He has a lot of potential. At this time, Jiaran and Li Zhensheng had already walked over. Li Zhensheng read the letter carefully, and Tong Jiaran said, if you are concerned, you can take the land route from here, and you can get home one day earlier than the water route. It's just that we have to pay attention to safety on the road and tell the Marquis when we get home we have to borrow the pier of the military camp this time, otherwise, I'm afraid the fleet won't be able to dock during the Chinese New Year. Yes, uncle, we will definitely bring the message, Jiaran responded. Brother Li and Brother Cat also nodded, looking a little excited. Although they were traveling to study and gain experience, they did not have the chance to travel alone most of the time. They did not want to be home soon and still have to travel alone. Luzong and Jiasu must go together. With 5 people like this, plus 5 servants, even if they ride together, they still need 5 horses. Jiaran was just planning to leave the dock and go to the county town to find some agencies and rent some horses. The steward who delivered the message had already brought the horses. Brother Cat happily put his hand on Luzong's arm and repeatedly promised countless delicious food. Luzong couldn't stop laughing. He was worried that Brother Cat was young and had poor riding skills, so he tied Brother Cat to his waist. Hurrying like this, with him blocking the wind, Brother Cat can still be lazy and take a nap. The group of people was soon on the road, braving the light snow that started to fall at an unknown time, and rushing home with a fiery heart. There was a night of wind and snow, and the white cotton padded jacket on Broken Gold Beach became thicker again. Having been bored at home for a few days, I missed my mother a little bit, so I chose to take a car and go for a walk in the city at 3 o'clock in the morning, the warmest time of the day. In the white clouds, business is still booming. Perhaps it's because the Chinese New Year is coming soon, so there are a lot of people moving between houses, and the supply of snacks and bihun cakes in the shop simply exceeds the demand. Shopkeeper Peng is in the front hall, as busy as a diligent bee. But he didn't feel tired at all, and his smile stretched from the corner of his mouth to his ears. Seeing his boss coming, he hurriedly welcomed him to the backyard and couldn't wait to report. "Boss, business has been very good these days. I did a simple calculation and found that my income in these days has doubled from before. Naturally, I was happy with the good news. This is a real profit, making money every day." She signaled Shui Ling to put down the box he had brought, and said with a smile, "Invite the master chef in charge of snacks to come over and talk. It's the Chinese New Year, and we have to add 2 new products to the shop." Seriously, shopkeeper Peng was extremely happy. There have been customers asking about this in the past few days. Today, the boss sent new products. It's great. Having said that, he went to call the master himself. Chen 11, who was a little free at the moment, also came over to enjoy the fun. Actually, Ji Yin didn't think of anything too outlandish to eat, just fried chicken, popcorn, and baked sweet potatoes. Chicken popcorn is made of chicken cut into pieces, marinated with seasonings, rolled in batter, and fried in oil. Except for the more complicated marinade recipe, the rest is very simple. Roasted sweet potatoes are even more common. It's just that sweet potatoes are produced in Yunzhou and are cheap. No caravan is willing to transport them. Ji Yin likes to eat roasted sweet potatoes. Since Lao He and others brought sweet potatoes back, they have planted several acres of land in the space. Now they have a good harvest, and they have packed 100 bags. She would not be able to finish the meal even if she took her family with her. Simply take it to the shop and exchange it for money. Shopkeeper Peng and Chen 11 are both optimistic about chicken popcorn and don't have high expectations for sweet potato. After all, sweet potatoes are a cheap commodity, and farmers are not willing to eat more unless they are extremely hungry. Unexpectedly, the sweet potato was roasted, peeled, put on a white porcelain plate, and took a bite of the red gold flesh with a small silver spoon. It was so unexpectedly sweet. The two looked at each other and immediately decided to sell it in the shop. At the beginning, each guest in the private room can receive one for free. After customers get used to it and like it, we can then set the price and sell it. Ji Yin couldn't help but eat half of it, and then while he was flipping through the account books, shopkeeper Peng came up to chat again. "Boss, the business at the branch is getting worse and worse recently. The goods received are not even half as much as before. Guests said that they all lost their appetite because of the rancid bihun cake sold in the branch, so they would rather walk a few more steps and come to us to buy freshly baked cakes than go to the branch." Ji Yin nodded and told, "So for those who sell food, the most important thing is reputation. We must strictly manage it in our shop. No matter how careful you are about quality and hygiene, you can't be too careful after all. it's what comes at the entrance. Don't worry, boss, I talk in everyone's ears every day, and I'm sure I won't be wrong, shopkeeper Peng quickly assured. Following the good news, I started to draw cakes. The end of the year is coming soon, our shop is special and we can only take one day off every 30 days. On the first day of the Lunar New Year, we pay New Year greetings, and on the second day of the Lunar New Year, we go to our parents' homes from the 15th day of the first lunar month. It is the peak season, and everyone has to continue working. Let's do this in addition to giving red envelopes and New Year gifts at the end of the year. We will give everyone double wages in the first month starting from February. Everyone will take turns to take vacations to do things. Of course, if someone has something to do at home, he must take a vacation during the new year, and don't try to stop him. Be considerate of each other and understand each other. Shopkeeper Pen was happy to hear this and quickly accepted the offer for everyone. Don't worry, boss, there won't be any emergencies like burning a house on fire, requiring us to go back and deal with it. Everyone has a New Year's Eve dinner during the holiday, and will come to work on the first day of the Lunar New Year. There will be no problem in keeping it. End of this chapter.